welcome to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Live. My name is Jeff Harding. Andy Groft and I are sitting in for Kyle Case, who's out of the town. Actually, he's out of the country right now, but we'll be taking over. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing really good, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. Today, joining us is former Olympian Graham Johnson. Graham, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Jeff and Andy.
How you doing, Graham?
I'm reasonably well for what's left of me.
Well, the last time I saw you, you were completely there. Something changed?
Yes, I'm older.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably a year older since the last time I saw you. Graham, we want to let
I'm going on 83 in about 2 weeks.
83 in 2 weeks, and you know, you wouldn't know it looking at you, Graham. You've kept yourself in good shape.
Well, thank you. It's all thanks to my wife's good cooking.
I think we can all say that. I am the way I am because of my wife's good cooking too, but that's a whole nother story. Graham, we want everybody to know a little bit about you. So Graham is from South Africa, the country of South Africa. So Graham, tell us a little bit about growing up in South Africa, and Graham is a swimmer. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Graham.
Well, to begin with, the reason why I'm in the United States is because in 1950, I went to the British Commonwealth Games in Auckland, New Zealand. I was about 18. And on that trip, I met a guy from South Africa who was a broad jumper, and when we got back to South Africa, an American track team toured South Africa, the first one since the war. And one of the track team members was a man by the name of Jacobs, whose son was the track coach at the University of Oklahoma. And he offered to get my friend Neville Price a scholarship through his father, which he did. And when I heard that Neville was going to the States, I got in touch with him and said, Neville, I'm in a dead-end job here. I just got out of high school. I want to see if I can get over to the States. See if you can get a swimming scholarship for me, if your school has them. And, well, the coach wrote back to me, and cut the long story short, he offered me a scholarship, and, of course, I accepted right away. It took me 3 weeks to get to the States. It cost me £1,000 in those days, which was a fortune. My mother paid half, and I paid half because I was a chicken farmer, although I was in high school. Paid the other half and came to the States in 1951.
Well, that's a lot of eggs that you had to go through to get here, wasn't it, Graham?
In those days, you couldn't fly to the United States. You had to fly up Africa into London, and then from London across, and that would have taken you 3 or 4 days too.
Wow, that was quite the trip. So tell us about Oklahoma and what happened there.
Well, they offered me a scholarship on the swim team. It was at those days the Big Seven, and I was the first ever, I believe, foreign student to come to the United States on a swimming scholarship. There might have been 1 or 2 before me, but that was right at the end of the war, and things were still pretty well unsettled. Europe was still in a shambles, and so I got to Oklahoma in the middle of the summer, and no one was there. I had no job. As a matter of fact, when I arrived in New York, I had $14 in my pocket and a train ticket to Akron, Ohio, where the swim coach was with some of his swimmers at the AAU championships, and we met up there and flew down to Oklahoma in 2 Beechcraft Bonanzas at about 4,000 feet.
Wow.
Over the flooded Mississippi River. I can remember that very clearly in 1951, and those planes were pretty small. They're probably about the size of a Toyota Corolla.
Wow. So now you swim at Oklahoma State and
Oklahoma University.
The University of Oklahoma, and yes. You have some success there, don't you?
Did I what?
You had some success there, didn't you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I hate to brag, but Oklahoma had never won the Big Seven, and the 4 years that I was there, we didn't lose it once. As a matter of fact, we even beat Texas 4 years in a row, and you know what a swimming powerhouse the University of Texas is today. But in those days, we beat SMU and Texas and all the rest of them. Matter of fact, there were 5 additional South Africans who arrived in the United States on swimming scholarship, partly to my behest, after I did. And we just kept on winning throughout the time that we were here in Oklahoma until about the time I left. I graduated in 56, and the others graduated 2 years later. And then, matter of fact, they dropped the swimming team. That was because of the, I think, Title 13 or something, where they dropped some of the programs and put the women in.
Right, the Title IX.
Title IX, that's it.
Well, Graham, this I will tell everybody this is talk radio, so we have an audience that comes and joins us a little bit late. So every so often I'll state that this is the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life with Graham Johnson, and the reason I'm doing that is just to let people know who they're listening to. So moving forward, did that open up some doors for you back home? Your success at the University of Oklahoma?
No, I studied in the United States with a company called Gardner Denver for a year. They were manufacturing mining and quarrying equipment, and I worked with them for a year in the United States. I was supposed to go to the Katanga region in the middle of Africa. I think it was the Congo. At that time, they had a man by the name of Patrice Lumumba who was causing a bit of trouble there, so they shipped me down to South Africa, to Johannesburg, and then on to a small mining town in the Orange Free State where there were nothing but dust, roads, and one grocery store, one movie house, and one hotel with a bar. And it wasn't much fun while I was there. And at the end of the second year, when I was supposed to get a raise, they told me, well, we're going to cut your salary because you're making too much money.
Oh.
I was being paid on the U.S. dollar over there, and I don't think they were happy that they had to pay me more than some of the other engineers that were there. So I packed up and left. My wife, Janice, being an American from Oklahoma, we decided to come back to where my degree would mean a little bit more than what they thought of it in South Africa, because they thought you just pick up college degrees on the trees.
Right.
So we moved back to the States 1957 after 2 years in South Africa.
Wow. Hey, well, I'd like to hear about your Olympic experience for the South African Olympic team.
Well, in those days, it was a small team. I think there was only about 5 of us. They couldn't afford really to send a team to the Helsinki Games in 1952. Unfortunately, I was out of college by that time, and it was a bit of a struggle for me because I didn't have good nutrition, and seemed to be the problem that happened while you were in college. You only had $15 a month spending money. It's not like the football players today that are trying to form unions. But
right.
The experience there was a good one. I unfortunately only made one final, and I was already about 24 years old, almost 20. No, sorry, that was second go-round. I was about 22 then, and it was a good experience. Of course, with Finland, the Russians were still firing guns across the border because they'd had a big war with the Finnish people. And it was a good experience, but for instance, the marching in on the stadium, we all marched in military order with our hands marching just like they would the British military. We all stood at attention, and they raised some flags, and that was the end of the ceremony. It's not like it is today.
Nothing like we have today, that's for sure.
Spectacle. Once the march in and the flags were raised and the oath was taken, that was it. The only exciting thing about the whole adventure into the stadium was that some woman with a long white scarf jumped from the visitor stands onto the track and started running around the track. The interesting part about it was she was buck naked.
Oh boy.
Oh, that was the opening ceremony.
That quite the memory there, quite the memory. Moving on.
Yes, it was a great memory, and one you don't forget quite often, and
I bet not.
It stays with you.
Yes, it does. So, now, when did you stop competitively swimming after college? How old were you?
After college, Jeff, Andy, I took about 17 years sabbatical because I was married and I had 5 children. I wasn't a Mormon, but I wasn't a Catholic either, but I was a good Protestant and a little bit, how can you say, passionate is the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
So for 17 years I didn't compete, and of course the Masters program, which is similar to the Huntsman program, only started in 1973. And so for 17 years I taught my children how to swim, and did maybe 500, 1,000 in the local swim pool. It was a outdoor summer pool, so I couldn't even swim in the winter in those days. But then in 1971, the master's program started by Dr. Ransom Arthur, and it was in West Texas. I was invited to go, but I just poo-pooed the whole idea. But 2 years later, they encouraged me to go again, and I did go in 1973, and to Santa Monica, California. And since then, I've been constantly swimming in masters. So that's a good number of years. I started at 40, and I'm now 83. So you can do the arithmetic.
You're a master, that's for sure. This is the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. We're talking with Graham Johnston. Graham, there's just one more thing I want to cover, and then we're going to go into some other questions. But you also have had some success with open water swimming. Tell us briefly about that.
Yeah, Jeff, Andy, I've done a number of open water swims, notably the most important one other than the English Channel, which I failed at after 14 miles because the water was 51 degrees and I went hypothermic. But I swam from the island of Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, to the mainland of South Africa, Cape Town. The water there was 52 degrees, and by the time I got to the other end and was successful, all my joints were blue.
I bet.
I've also swum from Lanai to Maui, which is a 10-mile point-to-point swim, which took me 8.5 hours because it was worse weather, they said, in 15 or 20 years. But I did succeed. And my last long-distance swim was from Tarifa, Spain, to the Moroccan coast, which was across the Straits of Gibraltar, which I did about 6 years ago. And
6 years
my
ago,
swim
wow.
then was faster than the swim that Gertrude Ederle did, who was one of the first swimmers to swim across the Straits of Gibraltar through the Mediterranean. Those have been my major open water swims. I'm now looking at one in Turkey, which is the Bosphorus or the Dardanelles, which hopefully I'll do next year at 83. This year they had some political problems there, and I also had some financial problems. It's a bit expensive to do all these long-distance swims all over the world, and unfortunately the money doesn't come as quickly as it does now that one's retired.
Sure. Now, Johnston, Johnston, this is Andy. I'm sorry,
Yes,
Graham.
Andy.
Graham, this is Andy. Before I move on, I've just got to double check here. So many of us have heard of the Straits of Gibraltar, and how far is it from Spain over to Morocco?
There again, it's about 10 miles from point to point, but Andy, what you have there, it's a very important shipping lane, and at any given time you can have as many as 10 ships traveling in opposite directions. The water was about 62 degrees.
That's better than 51.
Which is good water fountain drinking temperature.
Sure.
And you had a guide boat who went ahead, and then I had a Red Cross boat that stayed with me in case I was ready to drown or something.
But I think
and also to give you nutrition if you needed
Sure.
it, water, so forth.
I think the crazy thing for me, Graham, is just the fact not only that you swam 10 miles, that you swam across a shipping lane, but that you did it 6 years ago. You're 83 now, so you'd have been 77 years old.
Somewhere around there, yes.
That's crazy. Now, I wanted to ask you a question. A lot of our listeners are listening because they want to be inspired by the active life. They want to live longer. They want to be a little bit more active and enjoy themselves as they're getting older, whether that is going from 20 to 30 or from going from 60 to 70. What changes have you seen in health and fitness in your lifetime?
Oh, it's absolutely remarkable. When we moved to Houston in '62, they didn't even have a running trail. Now they've got miles and miles of bike trails and running trails that are all concreted in and beautiful parks. And that was at the beginning of really adult recreation, getting to a point of running marathons or doing the Waikiki Ironman or the one on the big island of Hawaii. And so that was the beginning really in the 60s of the health movement, positive, and also what followed with that was also the movement for people to do better nutrition, better sleeping habits, stop smoking, which is a terrible habit, maybe a little less drinking too. So I've seen a lot of changes in those years, and they've all been to the good. And the United States is a much healthier country today than it was in the 50s and the 60s, no question about it. And it's only because of programs like the Huntsman Games or the World Masters Swimming Championships or the National Senior Games that the adults have been encouraged from the age of 50 or in Masters Swimming from the age of 18 to take up a good sport, and there's no question about it. We're living longer. I think I'm testimony to that. I've got a good, clear mind. I'm well married, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And I'm much happier than I think I would have been if I'd been obese or overweight. And I don't think it's too late for anybody to change their lifestyle to become healthier, and unquestionably your mind improves too when your body is feeling better.
See, that's
I think that's what's so remarkable about the Huntsman and the National Senior Games in particular, of course also Masters Swimming, that it has made people much happier. I think they have fewer problems with insomnia and possibly other diseases which would have had an onset like heart disease and what have you.
Yeah.
So I think that we're definitely gone in the right direction. And, of course, the Masters program, which probably has grown a lot faster than, for instance, Huntsman, because it's all over the world now, and there's probably 400,000 or 500,000 people that are in the program. In the United States alone, there's over 200,000. And these are people that work out and train regularly, competitively, and that's in one of the sports, swimming, but of course Masters Swimming and so forth, Huntsman, encompasses all of the sports, and it's a wonderful operation.
Right. I agree with you.
Everybody a new lease on life. You can see for yourself, 13,000 people come to St. George to participate and have a good time.
Absolutely.
And I give credit to the state of Utah and also to the Huntsman family and also to St. George for offering to put this on the volunteers, the thousands of volunteers that offer their time and services. And I think they have as good a time as the athletes do that come to compete. It's just a wonderful experience to come to St. George, and I hope to be able to do it for a long time.
Graham, I'll tell you what, that was a plug. That was a plug. Thank you for reading it exactly like the script that we sent to you.
That was great, Graham. Thank you.
No, that I know that was from your heart, and we didn't ask you to say that, but that was a real plug. One thing I just want to mention is, you mentioned like in Houston, there's miles and miles of hiking trails and biking trails, running trails. There's gyms everywhere. There's all kinds of things like this. But one thing that you mentioned was these events are one of the things that really motivates us to get on those trails. So all of a sudden we sign up for a 5K, we sign up for swimming or the half marathon at the Huntsman World Senior Games or in any of these other cities that host events. And then because we know that there's an event, we know that there's something that we're going to do and we want to do well, whether we think we're going to win or not, we want to do well. And so we get out on those trails. And I think that's the same thing. A lot of people are hearing this show right now. They have trails all around them. They have opportunities to be healthy all around them. But signing up for an event, whatever it may be, the Huntsman World Senior Games or something else, really does help you get out and use those things. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Graham, just kind of a quick answer on this. You've touched on it a little bit, but how have you seen your health and your nutrition and kind of that movement that has increased in the United States over your lifetime? Is it kind of a fountain of youth? I mean, do you feel like you've been able to live longer, happier, better because you got out of the rocking chair, you got off the sofa and you got in the pool or you got out on the bike or on the road?
Well, there's no question about it. In order to answer that question, I don't know exactly what the question is, but the answer would be that you have to be motivated to get up off of your chair, watch the TV or drink your beer or whatever. And I say that everyone that competes is a champion. It's not just the person that comes in first on the marathon or on the mile in the run or the swimming pool. they're all champions, every one of them, because they're all doing the best they can. And maybe it's because they want to have the best time that they've ever had, but they're enjoying themselves, and I respect everyone, whether they come in first or last. They're out doing it, and that's what's important, is the showing up.
Absolutely.
It's better to enter the arena and lose than not to enter the arena at all.
This is the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. We're talking with Graham Johnson. Graham, we have just a few minutes left. We just have maybe one or two quick questions. We are down to just the last few minutes, but I would like to know, how do you stay healthy and injury-free? How have you as you've aged? I mean, you said you're 83. That's quite the accomplishment to still be competing at that age. How have you kept yourself injury-free?
Well, injury-free, I've been lucky in that regard, although I have an acre and a half and I do all my own maintenance and repairs inside and mowing and all that. I am not without any problems. I, matter of fact, had a serious heart problem at the Sand Hollow Pool 2 or 3 years ago now, where I had a blocked artery, 99% blocked, and I could have croaked in the pool, but fortunately, I found out. I thought I had a chest problem, and that was cured, and I have had a stent, so I'm pretty healthy now. And of course, way back when I was 30, I had a gallstone operation, but that hadn't bothered me any. But injury I've been free of. Fortunately, swimming is an injury-free sport. It's not like running or any of those other sports where you suddenly injure yourself. With swimming, if you're going to have a problem with rotator cuffs or bad knees or whatever, it comes on slowly. So you have a warning.
Graham.
With other sports, it's too late, tennis and so forth. So swimming is a sport where you are actually buoyed by the water, so you're not using all of the weight of your body.
Right, low impact, and that's great.
What you're up to.
So Graham, there's people listening right now who are saying, I can't run anymore, I can't swim anymore, I can't bike anymore because I have a heart problem, or because I'm just too old, my joints hurt. What would you say to them?
Well, what I'd say to that, Jeff, is that the heart doctors have said you can walk. You can walk around the block. That's how you start if you're feeling that you can't do it. You can start with a quarter of a mile, a half a mile, and you can build up. Walking is a wonderful exercise, and that's the way to get started. You can start in your house if it's cold on a treadmill. You can get on a stationary bicycle. There are many ways to get started, but it's foolish for people that are in their 50s and 60s or 70s even to think that they're too old. You are never too old. I met a man today who was 96 years old. I went to an estate sale, which I love to go to once in a while. And this man had a tremendous handshake. His eyes were clear. He was 95 years old, and he was a veteran. I didn't ask him what he'd done to be that way. He just said that he just stayed healthy. And so it's wonderful to meet people that are your age or even younger or older that are happy and healthy in life. And that's the way it is, We only get around once to this life, and we want to enjoy it till the day we die. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't, and that's because they're not dieting right, they're not eating, they're not other habits which are bad are affecting their lifestyle, and it's not good that you should live for another 20 years and not feel good during those years.
But what you're saying, Graham, is that we can start small. We don't have to run a marathon tomorrow. We can walk around the block and start that way. We don't have to eat perfect tomorrow. We can start eating a little bit better today.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
Graham, we're running out of time. It's been delightful. Thank you for joining me and Andy. We look forward to seeing you in October when you come back to the Huntsman World Senior Games.
I will definitely be there.
Well, just for the audience out there, we'd like to thank you for joining us for today's show. Remember to join us each and every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. for the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life on Fox News 1450.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. If you don't take that step, you don't get anywhere.
That's right, Graham. Thank you so much. For information or to register as an athlete for the Huntsman World Senior Games, visit www.seniorgames.net. If you have any questions about the games or today's show, Or if you have a suggestion for future shows, be sure to send us an email at activelife@seniorgames.net. That's activelife@seniorgames.net. Everything all spelled out. Until next time, stay active.
Graham, it's been great to have you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. I hope that I produced what you wanted me to.
Oh, you've been great. Thank you. Inspirational.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for
Bye.
calling.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.